Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Retirement Compass, the show dedicated to helping you successfully navigate to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm joined in the studio by two members from Stonebridge Wealth Systems. We have the co-founder, Tim Kulhanek, and partner, Jeremy Gove. We've got a great show for you today. The title of today's show is The Treasure of Your Lost or Forgotten 401k, How to Unlock Your Hidden Retirement Potential. And if you are wanting to simplify, organize, and maximize your retirement savings, you're not going to want to miss this fun and informative show. Tim, Jeremy, so good to be here with you again this week. How are you both doing?
Excellent. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, great. I'm excited about this show because I think this is a topic that comes up in almost every meeting that we have.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to it. And before we get into that subject matter, I know the other thing that's been really exciting happening for both of you is you recently had your semi-annual client breakfast. So share with our viewers a little bit about that and what took place.
Yeah, so we started doing that in Lincoln, and we've branched that out to all of our offices. And essentially what we do is we found that, we want to make sure that our clients are informed of what's happening, not only in the economy, but also the financial markets, and understanding what we're doing, right, in order to help navigate them to and through the retirement of their dreams. And one of the best ways we can do that is to get together as a big group and just kind of have a symposium, if you will, almost like a state of the market rather than state of the union. And it's been a lot of fun. A lot of times we'll have a guest speaker out. In Lincoln, we do them typically at Wilderness Ridge. And we'll have, we invite all of our clients in the area. It's tough because not everyone's retired.
Right.
And when I do it earlier in the year, a lot of the snowbirds aren't there. And
Sure.
like I had one client say, hey, you're doing this too early for us snowbirds down here in Florida. And then another one said, well, I'd love to be there and sip orange juice, but I'll be sipping margarritas by the beach instead.
Oh, and you're like, poor you, right?
Yeah, I feel really bad for them. Thank you for letting me know that you're on the beach. I was hoping that you would tell me. But it's a lot of fun, and it's a way for us to be able to take about an hour, have some great breakfast, and make sure that everyone knows what's going on. Because a lot of people are concerned with market volatility returning.
Sure,
we had a couple of unicorn years in 23 and 24 where we only had two correction or pullbacks last year, not a single correction. So this is a great way to say, hey, you know what? Let's get back to the basics. Understand that this is the price of admission to investing in the capital markets to get the good long-term returns. You have to be willing to, endure some of the gyrations of the market.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know you just love getting to be face-to-face with folks. And I think that's the joy of doing the show too, right? Is we're getting to connect with all of you. But then what's so fun is when you actually get to come in and meet with the team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems and become a client, you become family. And it's really, you take that very seriously.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, good. Well, back to the subject at hand today, the treasure of your lost or forgotten 401k. One of the things to set the context for today's discussion I want to say up front is we're going to be using the term 401k throughout today's show, but really this applies to you whether you have a 403b, a TSP, a 457, whatever type of workplace retirement plan that you may have or have had in the past, this show applies to you. And the inspiration for today's show has come out of the significant growth of lost or forgotten workplace retirement plans, these 401k accounts that have been left behind. And we have some statistics to share with you. This is according to the fintech company Capitalize. And as of May 2023, are you guys ready for this? Because these stats are mind-blowing. There are 29.2 million left behind or forgotten 401k accounts out there, holding approximately $1.65 trillion in assets. That represents 25% of all 401k assets that are currently being invested. And the average American worker has 3 to 5 old dormant accounts sitting around out there with the average balance in those old 401ks of over $56,000. So guys, let me just pause there. If we think about this, the average American worker has 3 to 5 old accounts floating around with over $56,000 out there. That's a lot of lost treasure, if you will, a lot of lost money to be recovered. So let me ask this. You said this is very common. When folks come in and meet with you for the first time, how often are you finding that they do have these old, dormant, forgotten accounts?
Yeah, I mean, the statistics back up what our experience has been as well. CNBC says 1 in 5 Americans have a old or dormant 401k or an inactive 401k, one they're not currently contributing to. I just got a phone call a week or so ago, and we got a client who lives down in South Florida, and she had emailed and she said, hey, look, there's a coworker of mine. I told her about you, and I've had a good experience, and you really helped me through a lot of different things. she needs some help, right? She doesn't know what to do with these old accounts. She just started here about a year ago. There's nobody to help her with this old 401k.
Right.
And I talked to her the other day, and sure enough, she's got a sizable amount in this former employer's plan. And she goes, I call in and I get a call center. It's an 800 number. They don't know me from the next person that calls, and I'm sure they want to keep their, total time on the phone is monitored, and they want to keep it to less than probably 5 minutes. And so they've got a kind of a tally of how many calls they can get done in a day because I'm just on to the next one. I don't feel valued. And so it's time after time. I think back to a couple years ago, I met with a guy, we'll call him John, and it's kind of funny because I had met with him. Well, I guess I met with him probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and then a couple of years ago, Jeremy met with him. And so he keeps coming back. And so whether he knows it or not, subconsciously, he knows like there's something going on in his life that he's not satisfied with. Right? He's not getting the level of service, expertise, care, assistance that he really knows that he needs and deserves. But he was a dentist. I don't know if you remember who I'm talking about or not.
Yeah,
but
I know.
What did he have? Like a dozen different accounts at old employers, companies that he didn't have any relationship with. And when we added up, he's like, well, how much do I have? Well, how much do you have? You don't know? And I told him how much he had. He goes, wow, that's more than that. You're like, well, that's great, but this is a problem. We need to know where this money's at. You need somebody looking over it who has a vested interest and a really fiduciary obligation to make sure that your interests are being put ahead of their own.
Yes, because I think the tragic thing that folks don't understand is when you have a bunch of old accounts and they're not correlated and they're not working together, that's your hard-earned money that's not working hard for you. And that's what we're going to be talking about today is how you get that. How do you gather all these old accounts to make sure that they are working in your best interest? But why is it so common today, specifically, for folks to end up with so many different 401k accounts?
Well, it's really easy to understand when you look at the statistic from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So those born between 1957 and 1964 held an average of 12 different jobs.
Before they reach the age of 54.
Before they reach the age of 54. And so if you think about that, that's a lot of 401ks that you got to go track down and other retirement accounts. I mean, we have people that come in that have old pensions even, from their first employer or whatever, so that these pensions are out there. It might only be, $250 a month or $500 a month, but it's still their money. I mean, they worked for that. So, so there's a lot of that. And the hard part is, if you want to think about it from just a lack of, knowing like John, we're talking about. Yeah. So John, he didn't even really know how much he had. And so even if he has a financial advisor that he's working with, it would be really hard to even give him advice because all these accounts are all over the place. And a lot of times when people come in to meet with us, that's the issue is you don't know where everything's at until we start uncovering it, and we got to get organized. And if you think about that from a beneficiary standpoint, if you have all these statements out there and, you have a beneficiary that comes in, they sit down with us and they say, Mom passed away. There's these accounts. I don't know if there's money in them or not. And in their mind, they've already kind of started using that money because they think it's there. Why would Mom save a statement that's not? And combining them all together just simplifies life and cleans it up a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if someone's watching right now and going, yeah, that's me, I've got a bunch of old accounts, know that you're not alone. As we said, this is already so very common. In fact, a 2020 study by Fidelity revealed that approximately 30% of people who left a job had either forgotten about or lost track of their old 401k. And so again, I think part of the issue is there can be confusion when folks are leaving a previous place of employment of knowing what to do with that account. So real quickly, what are typically the 4 options that are presented to folks when they're leaving a place of employment of what to do with that account?
So I've got here the report from the GAO, Government Accountability Office, right?
Okay.
And this was a 2023 report, and they asked folks, they basically wanted to survey retirees or pre-retirees, people who had left a job, and ask them, are you aware of what those options are? Well, the options, let's list those first. Leave it where it's at. Roll it over to a new employer's plan if the new employer will accept the funds. Roll over funds to an IRA. So it could be a rollover IRA, like a pre-tax account, could be a Roth IRA, or take a lump sum distribution, in which case it would be taxable. According to the study, 82% of eligible participants were unaware of all 4 options.
Yeah.
So I guess my message for the folks out there watching is if this is you, if you've got maybe some lost or forgotten 401ks, or you're thinking, oh, I'll just leave it there because that way I'm not paying a fee on it and I'll deal with it later. That's not always the best option, because when it comes to a 401k, think about a 401k this way. In Nebraska and where I'm at in the Lincoln market, one of my favorite stores to go to is Shields. Shields is a great store, a lot of fun. My kids are still too scared to go on the Ferris wheel, which really kind of eats me up because I want to go on it. To be honest, I love amusement parks and roller coasters. But if I go to Shields, I've got a lot of different options. Now I can go to the outlets, but just imagine that you went to the outlets over there by Gretna and all the doors to all the stores were locked except for the Nike store. They said, well, Nike's open, but only Nike. And I'm looking for shoes that day. And I go in, and my foot runs a little bit wide, and Nike's maybe run a little bit narrow. I could probably find something I can jam my foot into, and I can grit my teeth through the pain while I'm at the gym working out, but I can make it work. It does the job enough. It's maybe not the best fit, but I can make do with it. Now compare that to if I go to Shields, I have all the different options in one store, right? I have Nike, Adidas, K-Swiss, On, Clouds, that's what I wear most of the time. All these different options, running shoes, cross trainers, basketball, football, you name it. Really, the difference between a 401k and working with a professional like us and maybe rolling that money to an IRA is the difference between those two. In a 401k, you're going to be limited with your options. They're going to give you a fun lineup and say, hey, whether this fits your unique financial situation or not, this is what you have to choose from, make it work. Whereas working with somebody like Jeremy or I, or one of our team of experienced advisors, we can customize a plan that's tailored to your unique financial situations. We'll tell you more about it, and we're excited to. Just call the number at the bottom of your screen.
Wonderful. Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, this is your opportunity to get everything organized, to simplify and maximize your retirement savings. It starts with you reaching out and scheduling your time to receive your very own complimentary written financial review. 866-256-7778 is the number to call. Or if you'd rather connect online, you can simply click that QR code with your smartphone. That will take you to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Stonebridge Wealth Systems will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary meeting that way as well. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to walk through several of the different risks and problems with trying to maintain these old left behind accounts and provide the solution for you right after this.
My story started when I was in college. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I knew it was going to be in the financial industry. I took a lot of accounting and finance classes. I thought I'd probably work in like a bigger company and work my way through maybe the accounting department. But then when I was doing a internship the summer before my senior year, I walked into a business. I was trying to sell magazine ads. I don't know if I call it magazine ads, but basically ad space in the back of the UNK student handbook and planner, which was a difficult sell because, nobody uses pen and paper planners anymore, at least not college students. But I made my best pitch to some financial advisors. I happened to be Scott Noctegal that I met with that day. When I went for the close and tried to see if he was ready to sign up for some ad space, he said, yeah, no, I'm not interested in that, but it takes a lot of courage to have somebody to be willing to walk into a business, especially a business that really doesn't cater to your target audience, to put yourself out there in a way that the odds of you being successful are probably pretty low. That's the type of person we'd be looking for at our firm. Have you decided what you want to do? And I said, no, I really haven't, but I only want to work with finance because I like numbers, and math's always been my favorite subject, and working with kind of complex equations, almost like a puzzle. And so that's really where it all began.
Welcome back to the Retirement Compass. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Tim and Jeremy from Stonebridge Wealth Systems, and today we are talking about the treasure of your lost or forgotten 401k or whatever type of workplace retirement plan you may have that you might have left behind at a previous place of employment. If you're just tuning in and joining us, we shared in the first segment how common this is. But the reality is there are several problems and risks with trying to maintain these old accounts. So that's what we want to make you aware of now. I think folks have to understand why this is so problematic in order to see, okay, I need to take action to fix this, right? So overall, what would you say is the biggest issue with having old accounts?
I think the biggest issue with the kind of 401k paradigm, if you will, when it comes to deferred defined contribution plans, is the lack of tailored, individualized advice. Like there's all kinds of problems, and Jeremy will go through some of those. But at the end of the day, you're not getting anything that's unique and specific to your needs. You're getting the same plan. If you're a retiree or retirement age, we sometimes call it the retirement red zone, like 5 to 7 years of retirement. Let's say you left an employer, you're getting the same options as the new 21-year-old that literally just got hired, that has this long time horizon, long runway, plenty of time to withstand some of the ebbs and flows of the market.
Right.
You have a different time horizon. Now you're subject to things like sequence of returns risk, for example. And a 401k, it's kind of a 20th century solution to a more 21st century problem. It again does the trick, but it doesn't do it great. But when it comes to that lack of advice, we had someone in our office recently, Zach and I were working with them, and essentially what we found was when she left her place of employment, people don't understand, like a lot of the folks that we work with, like some people out there are fairly involved with their investments and they check them every day, but that's not most people. Most people just want to focus on the things that give them enjoyment and bring them happiness, which a lot of times family and friends and social activities.
Right.
Not on, financial market research. And so this gal, is not her fault at all. There's just a lack of education when it comes to retirement planning. She retired. She'd been making like $65,000 a year. Her Social Security was, I think, around $30,000 a year. She thought, well, I need the same income probably. I probably just need to keep taking the same amount. So she then took a net $35,000 a year, ended up over $42,000 or whatever it was per year out of her 401k. Well, the problem is she only had about $500,000 to start. And she started doing this in January of 2022. Can you tell me what happened in 2022?
Yeah, the markets did not fare well for either stocks or bonds.
Exactly.
Yep.
And because there was no tailored advice, because she was in just a target date fund, which is a one-size-fits-most approach,
right.
It actually, it wasn't that conservative. And even if it was, bonds had their worst year in history.
Yep.
So by the time she came into my office, unfortunately, her $500,000 was less than $200,000.
Wow.
Because she was taking way too much money, right? What amounted to, after the losses, like 15, 20% is what her current withdrawal rate would be. And she basically said, I need help. I don't know what to do. And it's tragic situations like that because there's only so much that can be done at this point.
Right.
Had there been more education on the front end, or had I been fortunate enough to meet her a little bit sooner, we probably could have prevented a lot of that pain.
And gotten on the front end of it, for sure. Well, again, as we said, there's lots of risks and problems with trying to maintain these old accounts. We've got a quick list here we want to go through just to make you all aware of why this can be such a problem and why it needs to be fixed. So, Jeremy, let's go through each one here. The first up, you guys have already kind of covered this, but limited investment choices, right? And that's true with any workplace retirement plan.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges. If you have your account at Fidelity, right, you're going to have all Fidelity funds.
Right.
And we talk a lot about that. Can Fidelity have the best fund in each category? And a lot of times today, as Tim mentioned, most retirement accounts are just set in these target date funds. I think I'm going to retire in 2035, so they just use that. And again, that's probably not the best place to have your money anyway.
Right, for sure.
But it's easy for a 401k company who's not providing you actually individual advice for you. They're saying, hey, when do you want to retire? Okay, we'll throw you in that. And we give you
that cookie cutter
unofficial
approach,
advice,
right?
if you want to call it that.
Yeah, for sure. And so limited investment choices, you guys have already talked about that, less access to personal advice. Really what that means is you have less control over your hard-earned money, and that can be a problem. There's another issue that pops up when you hit age 73, as the rule currently states, required minimum distribution age. Talk about why someone having multiple 401ks, let's say for example, can be such a problem when they hit that milestone.
Yeah, so we do a lot of live events. We call them workshops where we're talking about taxes and retirement, and we talk about RMDs. And there's a huge misconception out there that if I have 5 different IRAs and 3 different 401ks, I just lump that all together, and then I take my RMD based off that.
That
right?
aggregate total.
The aggregate total.
Yeah.
So that's true for the IRA piece. So I can take my money out of the IRA. Let's say it's $1 million, and I have to take $25,000 out of those IRAs. I can take it from one IRA, right? But on the 401k side, that's different. If I'm not contributing to the 401k, now I've got to take an RMD out of that as well. And if I forget what the number was, if there's 3 to 5 accounts out there that
Yep.
are quote unquote forgotten.
Yep.
And I'm 73. Now I'm not taking that RMD out of those. And those companies are not going to call me and tell me, hey, you need to take that money out.
Right.
And the penalty, it's 25% today.
On top of the tax you owe,
On top
right?
of the tax
Yes.
and penalties for not
Yep.
doing it.
Right.
So the RMD thing is one of the major reasons. If none of these other things speak to you, the RMD situation definitely should.
Oh yeah, there's so many ways that can go wrong, especially if you have these multiple old forgotten accounts. So that's a huge case for wanting to consolidate, which we're going to talk as the solution as we go on today's show. Two other things though I want to hit on, problems and risks. One is beneficiary designations can easily become out of date.
Yeah.
Explain why this is so problematic.
Well, so we talk a lot about blended families. I mean, in America, there's a lot of blended families, and so if I was married to a different spouse than the one I'm currently married to, and I have an old 401k, I might be leaving all those assets to that person.
And unknowingly, right? Because you forgot about
yeah,
it.
I forgot about
Yeah.
it. And so maybe, that can create a lot of problems, obviously.
For sure.
And so that's why it's important to be, as you're putting a plan together, you want to make sure that what you want to have happen with your money is actually going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's the critical piece of that.
For sure. And then finally, it's hard to believe, but this does happen. Accounts can literally get lost. Plan providers can change. Maybe you've moved. Maybe it's been 20 plus years since you worked at that company where you left that account behind. They don't have your updated address. I mean, you guys have seen this happen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And also the 401k company or the company you worked for,
Right.
They may change 401k providers.
Correct,
That happens
yep.
all the time too.
Yep.
And so then it becomes really complicated because you can't even call your old employer to
Right.
get that information.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's the solution to this lost 401k problem?
Well, it's really simple. Just to consolidate, consolidate the accounts. And this is where it comes to Tim's point, where it comes that you need specific advice about your situation.
Yes.
Does it make sense to roll that money over to an IRA? If you have post-tax money, maybe that goes into a Roth IRA. But what should we do? Should we move that money over? But that's really the easy answer. You should consolidate it and actually talk to a professional to figure out how should you consolidate that for your specific situation.
Well, it's an analysis we can do for you. And so I think just to close this segment, I've got a picture. I put a couple of pictures together, and you might be thinking, well, Tim, how do you guys help? How can I be benefiting from some of this advice that you're giving and the information you're giving on the show? And so I want to pull up a couple pictures, because sometimes if you feel like you're going through life, your financial life, you might feel like you're on this road where, there's really no guardrails in place. You're hanging by the skin of your teeth, flying by the seat of your pants, whatever kind of fun saying you want to use. And you feel like, man, if one thing goes wrong, if everything doesn't go perfectly right, I could be in a ditch. I could be, in
Off
this
the
case,
cliff.
it's a kind of off a cliff, right?
Right, yep.
And that's not really what for my retirement. So what does Stonebridge do? So we got another picture. This is what we do. Now you still get the beautiful scenery. You still get to experience life and enjoy it. But there's going to be some guardrails in place to make sure that you have a defined outcome. You know that even if things get weird and wild in the market, no matter what happens, there's at least some amount of protection that you can rely on, something you can depend on that you know will be there for you to and through your retirement. That would be a reason, if that's something that's appealing to you, that'd be a reason to call that number today.
Wonderful. Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much. That number to call is 866-256-7778. Or again, you can schedule your complimentary financial review by simply scanning the QR code that you see there in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. When we come back, we're going to talk more about consolidation. It's so important to make sure it's done correctly. Stay with us to find out what you need to be aware of regarding potential tax implications right after this.
Have you ever considered refinancing your retirement? When interest rates are low, you might be able to refinance your home, your car, and even your credit card rates, because it could help keep more of your money each month. Yet when interest rates go up, it may make sense to refinance your retirement. Higher interest rates could provide income opportunities that you may not be aware of. What works for your portfolio during low interest rates may not work for you when interest rates are high. Find out if a retirement refi could work better for you. Give us a call today and schedule a complimentary Refi Your Retirement review.
Well, welcome back to the Retirement Compass. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Tim and Jeremy from Stonebridge Wealth Systems. We've been talking today about the problem with having lost our old 401k or different workplace retirement plan accounts that you might have left behind at previous places of employment. We said right before the break, the solution is to consolidate them. And that is your recommendation, right, guys, is taking these old accounts, consolidating them into an IRA. I know that one of the things I have heard folks say is they have this misconception. They're afraid to do a rollover like this because they don't want to trigger or create a taxable event. So what tax implications do folks need to understand and be aware of as it relates to this process of consolidation?
Yeah, so if you're rolling money from a qualified account to another qualified account, there is no tax consequence.
Right.
So
if it's done correctly.
If it's done correctly.
Right.
And this actually is an important discussion, because if I'm rolling money from my 401k, a lot of 401ks today have Roth options. And so you may have put money in your Roth not knowingly, or maybe we put in after-tax dollars and you don't remember that you did that. Well, when you go to roll that money over, they don't really ask you if you want to put that in the Roth versus the traditional. They'll just roll it to the traditional. So ultimately, we're going to pay taxes twice on that money.
It's a disaster. I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people that work for the city of Lincoln, for example, there's after-tax money in there. We can roll the pre-tax money to a rollover IRA, and then we can have that after-tax money, those contributions they made that they didn't get a deduction on, so to speak, we can roll that directly to a Roth. So I've had people who have been able to put over $100,000 into a Roth as a tax-free conversion, effectively.
Wow.
It's amazing. So let me close with this. I took my mom and dad, it was a Christmas present, I took them to Andrea Bocelli. You guys know who that is?
Yes,
Time to say goodnight. It's kind of that time of the show, right? So here's the thing. It was my dad's favorite concert he's ever been to. But if you get there early enough and the symphony's warming up, it's kind of like cats fighting, because everybody's playing to their own sheet of music.
Right.
Until this amazing thing happens, because all the cellos over here and the violins, and what happens is this little man with a stick walks out, and when he raises it up, everything goes silent. And then he starts to kind of wave it around, and the most beautiful sound you've ever heard starts coming out, all playing to the same sheet of music, all in unison. Your 401ks are all spread out. It's cats fighting. When you call the number at the bottom of your screen, we're going to raise that stick. We're going to make sure that everything plays to the same sheet of music for your benefit.
So well said. Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much. And thank you to our viewers for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Reach out. The team would love to help and serve you. And we'll see you next time here on the Retirement Compass.